there could be very few teachers in the country in 30 years, and that's a fact. He's crazy like Jack Bauer. His name is Forrest Power. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, YouTube. Okay, so hear me out for just a second. I do not think that in 30 years' time there will be no schools. That would be stupid. However, I do think that the education sector will be radically different, and I think we'll have a lot less teachers within the country, and that's due to advances in technology. If you think about it, the teaching game has not changed that much over the past 150 years. You go back to like Victorian England and people were still being sat at a desk in front of a teacher just like they are now. I think that is about to change. Now, a lot of the teachers that I speak to actually laugh when I throw this notion out there of there being like one guy lecturing hundreds, thousands of children across the country and say, oh, it will never happen. But these are likely the same people that laughed at the prospect of a robot doing your hoovering for you, or the fact that you could see who was at your front door whenever they rang a doorbell. A lot of ideas that are out there seem like they are from the world of like Star Trek or Star Wars until they are actually put into fruition. And I think that we're going to see something similar with teaching. Evolution is a necessity in every area of life, and teaching is no different. I mean, it makes absolutely zero sense for me that in 2022 we have still got students using pens and paper to do all of their work. For example, we live in a digital world now whereby like computers are the medium of communication, and therefore like surely we should be giving students access to things like this to write with on a daily basis rather than forcing them to use a pen and paper. I mean, I think about my own daily life and the fact that like very rarely, unless I'm marking like a set of books, do I ever pick up a pen and paper? Just seems illogical to me. The world is like so digital now that it seems to be to me that like people should be equipped with a laptop or an iPad to do their work on rather than using, you know, a pen and paper. And that would equip people better for like the world outside of school. It just seems really archaic and old fashioned, the fact that we're still using, you know, the same things that like they did 150 years ago when people go into the world of work, they just predominantly use a computer. Plus, if everything is made digital, you'd have far less like daft excuses about people not doing the homework, like my dog ate it. You can't really say that when all work is like submitted on a laptop or an iPad, can you? No hiding. One reason why the teaching industry hasn't gone more digital already is likely due to fear. All teachers have done their year of teacher training on top of a 3 or a 4 year degree, but we were never taught to forward think about technology and the impact that technology would actually have on the teaching game. I think that Pandora's box has been opened somewhat with COVID. Students were forced to learn from home, and it was somewhat successful. Now, clearly, I do know that there was an army of students sat there in the pajamas, eating Doritos, listening to the science teacher gabble on about like photosynthesis, and might not have been paying complete attention. But that system wasn't perfect, but it could be perfected though. And there are a lot of minds out there, a lot smarter than myself, that will be looking at a way to kind of use the idea of students working from home, and maybe somewhere in the future we might actually see, you know, school buildings not existing, and it could eventually become an entirely online experience. Like I say though, the big problem, and the one that clearly needs combating first, is the issue of whether or not students are paying attention from home. And I'm sure that there are tools that could be put in place to measure engagement. I know a lot of companies that have people work from home now have a system whereby they can see how much engagement is coming from that employee based on like wiggles of the mouse and things like that. Now, I'm not saying that would work for school children, but maybe it is a starting point. If you were a student behind a computer screen and you chose not to listen, it'd only be your life chances that you'd be hurting in the long run anyway. But that said, there are a lot of kids out there today that are completely disillusioned with the entire schooling system, and I totally get it if I'm honest. I used to question, why am I learning this when I was at school? And I don't think there's anything wrong with that question. If a teacher can't justify why you're learning a particular skill or a specific bit of knowledge other than to pass an exam, where is the real life application for it? I'm a product of the system myself though. Teachers have no major control over what they teach, and neither do individual schools actually. The government decides on the national curriculum, and so any change about what students are taught needs to come from them. The problem is though that the schooling system has clearly benefited all of these rich politicians that live in their big London houses and served them well over the last 30 or 40 years, and for that reason they think that it is proper and correct. But clearly it doesn't work for everyone. Whilst we are talking about things that might not be proper or correct as well, it's always seemed a little bit strange to me that we still group people by age as well. People of a specific age go into one class and so forth. I could take a top set year 11 student and a bottom set year 11 student, and the only thing that they might have in common would be the physical age. Mentally, they could actually be like worlds apart. And some lessons are actually grouped according to forms, which could potentially find these two students in the same lesson. How does that benefit either one of them? The fact is that some students are ready for the world of work and post-education before they're actually 16, and some students aren't ready for that until they're well into their 20s. Now, I'm not saying that we should imprison people in school until they're like 25, but I don't think it would hurt the government to start to look at alternatives to just simply categorising students solely based on their age. I feel like I might be straying a little bit far from the topic of how life will be different with teachers. So to bring it back around, one of the jobs that people say can't be replicated without a dedicated staff body of teachers working in every school up and down the country is marking and feedback. Students need personalised feedback. That's something that I hear time and time again, and it's something that I wholeheartedly agree with. And that might be something that can't be perfectly replicated by some kind of AI system. However, I do look at like the technological advances that have been made with regards to things like robots, and as I've talked about already, if you told me like 15 years ago I'd be able to, at the click of a button, have a robot go and do all the hoovering in my house, I would be absolutely flabbergasted by that fact. So looking to the future, I can foresee a scenario a couple of years down the line, and not in the too distant future, where students will be able to scan all their work in and pretty much have an AI system actually mark it all without the input of the teacher. And on a personal note, as an English teacher, I think that would be awesome, because what that would do is free up the teachers, giving them a little bit more time to look at creating inventive and exciting lessons rather than spending most of their lives, like I do, armed with a red pen on the sofa, flicking through work for hours on hours every night. There are going to have to be some forward-thinking people put in places of political power at some stage, though. Instead of these dinosaur-like MPs calling all the shots, when that happens, you might see some serious changes to the way in which schools are run, the way in which exams are conducted, the whole 9 yards. And I think that point has got to come sooner rather than later. I guess a lot of the points that I've come out with today are born out of a fear that I am going to lose my job to a robot over the next 20 years. It's a real fear for a lot of industries out there today. Just the other week, I was reading a study about the American trucking industry. And I saw a statistic that 90% of all truck driving jobs in the good old USA of A are going to be swallowed up by robots over the coming years. That's quite frightening. And if you are in the position where you're thinking about getting a job or you've not got a job yet, you've got to consider the way in which robots and AI technology are going to have an influence over the particular industry that you're going to get into over the next 20 to 30 years. Otherwise, I think you're being quite short-sighted with it. Given the advances in technology, if you're not thinking about these kind of issues, I'd say that you're behind the curve already. But as always, this channel is not just about my opinion. What do you guys think about this topic? Do you think that robots can ever replace teachers? How long will it be before the system inevitably does actually change? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and make sure to drop a like if you haven't made it this far into the video. Stay tuned for more coming over the future weeks, and make sure to sub to the channel with notifications on so that you don't miss any further updates. Once again, thank you for watching this video. I'm Forrest Power, and this has been Emotional.